And on the football show, Tim Vickery is going to be with us to talk about South American football, but a lot of South American players potentially on the move, including Anthony. He could potentially go to Manchester United before the window slams shut next week, but Ajax are holding firm. They want €100 million for the Brazilian winger. Plenty of other South American players have been impressing so far this season, like Gabriel Jesus, Lissandro Martinez. We'll be talking to our man in South America, Tim Vickery. On the football show, we'll also be joined by Dan McDonnell. James Skell will join us to talk about Micheál Donoghue's appointment. He was Skell's 2017 All-Ireland hurling winning manager with Galway. He is now in charge of the Dublin Hurlers for the next 3 seasons. And Rebecca Clancy is going to be talking about Danny Ricciardo looking for a new team after he's been officially dropped today. A lot of drivers are on the move in the end, basically the last week or so that's left of the mid-season break in Formula 1. So all that to look forward to on the show. Delighted to say I've got Arthur with me here in studio. Arthur, how are you getting on?
Not so bad, Will. How are you?
And Richie is there with us by the joy of virtual technology. A bit like the PGA Tour at the moment, Richie, potentially.
Yeah, I'm going to be competing in the new Tomorrow Sports venture from January 2024. I'm the first signee, Will. Sign me up.
I saw the videos earlier, Rich. It seems a bit crazy, but at the same time, if you got Rory McIlroy and Tiger Woods and all the power that they have within the game and all the money that's potentially going to be thrown towards this project, could we be seeing some kind of virtual stadium golf actually happen?
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, it has prolonged the career of Tiger Woods because, you know, they're going to have these 20 events, these marquee events on the PGA Tour, of which he'll probably compete in some, you would guess. And now he has this ready-made series for himself, which is obviously a short-form version of golf. As many people can see him as possible. It keeps him in the limelight. It keeps the PGA Tour relevant because their top star for the past forever will still be involved in some way, shape or form. And they get to, like, this is whatever about talking about other sports trying to grow the game and LIV Golf trying to grow the game with their own venture. This, as ugly and as crass as it might seem to some people, probably does have more of a scope to do that because it, in essence, is taking away a lot of the quote-unquote boring elements of golf. It's aiming to put it on TV, which is still a huge thing. Get it in front of the most amount of eyeballs as it possibly can, which is something LIV haven't been able to do and I don't think will be able to do. And yeah, I don't know. It almost seems like it'll be something like the 100 in cricket, whereby it's it's a gateway drug to actual golf. But never succumb to the actual horrors of real golf, kids.
Yeah, there we go. The Golf Weekly crew, Arthur, I'm sure delight this idea that, you know, new kids are going to watch this strange format that's being formulated at the moment, maybe get hooked into it, and they might even watch a major.
So, do we know how it's broken down? Or what does it look like? Because you said it's in a stadium, or it's going to be in a stadium?
That's part of the plan.
A special built venue is what they said. Yeah, it's going to be their own. It's not like it's going to be in, I don't know, Atlanta's stadium or wherever, but they're going to have their own setup, however it might come across. Like, they've left themselves a lot of wiggle room. It's not as if they're launching this in a month's time. They've given themselves until January 2024 to get this up and running. So there's a bit of time.
It was like as well, Rich,
actually get
a kind of a raft of info all came at the one time. So for the players, they're looking at it going, well, from next season, if you sign up to the PGA Tour, you're going to be playing 20 events, but you're going to be a millionaire basically because of the money that's going to be available. So that competes directly with LIV Golf. At the same time, you've got Tiger and Rory, talking about going into the digital sphere, and you've got these new formats potentially of the game being discussed, which kind of in a way goes entirely opposite to what the PGA Tour was trying to compete against LIV Golf, which was, we are tradition. We are, players want to play the playoffs. The fans want to watch traditional golf. They don't want this 54-hole nonsense that's on the LIV Tour. And still at the same time, this is very clearly trying to stretch their audience into different directions now.
Yeah, they're just going to give people both, which is probably, the correct way to go about it, instead of going one way or the other. Is if you can't join them, beat them, somebody said earlier on today, and they're going to retain all of the cachet that goes along with being the PGA Tour and being linked with the majors and all that good stuff, and then they're going to create their own fancy, flashy young person's outlet. And I just thought it was interesting to see them channeling the term sports entertainment last night, because that's what they've gone for here, and that's what it promises to be. And I think that's probably to a degree going to be the future, not just of golf but probably of most sports, that they try to have the flashiest version of it possible to try and make it an attractive proposition for TV and have it within finite hours as well. This is going to be knocked out and punched out each competition within 2 hours, which is going to be a huge boost in terms of trying to selling advertising and keeping rates at a premium and all that kind of jazz. So they've clearly thought this out, and they clearly think that this is the way forward. And I don't know, it'll be interesting to see how it pans out ultimately.
I'm sure that they've got marketing people who probably look at all of this and have decided that this is the way that golf has to go. It'll all be very easily clippable. It's all on TV. For those who've got a short attention span, you don't want to sit down and watch rounds of golf and give up 6 or 8 hours in a day to watch a round. A bit like the cricket that Richie just said, you can sit down and watch it in a short period of time.
Is golf struggling? Like, apart from, say, the PGA Tour struggle with LIV golf, like, there's just so much money. Is it just because it's a smaller concentration of people that the money is like, it seems vast when broken down, but like all in all, it's not actually that? Like, does this need to happen, or I just don't, like, is it just directly because of the LIV threat rather than just a wider?
It definitely feels like that to me anyway. I think they genuinely have looked at LIV here, and while initially there was a feeling that they were going their own direction and good luck to everyone who's going to LIV, you can't ignore the fact that if you're at the PGA Tour, that a raft of players who were towards the top of the world rankings have now decided to go to LIV golf. So there is kind of an existentialist threat to golf at the moment, that people will have to potentially pick and choose between what they watch depending on the players they're interested in.
Yeah, I like the 100. Just going back to that, I think I'd be open to watching it. It sounds pretty good.
See, as a traditional cricket fan, I enjoy one-day internationals and I enjoy tests. And in a way, 2020 destroyed one-day internationals for me, and I realise I'm in the minority. A lot of people who go along to watch T20, Arthur, really enjoy it, or they'll watch the 100, or they'll watch these different formats.
What's the tradition of cricket in Offaly?
Well, okay, I had to play in North Tipperary because our club was in Ballyheigue,
right.
but we played one day. That's what we played, and then even towards the end of my time playing, and I had to give up because eventually after a while you can't commit to giving both days of your weekend to playing cricket entirely, which is what happens with cricket. T20 came in, and I know even the old stalwarts in our club didn't particularly like 2020 cricket coming in, even though, to be fair, it was a lot more practical in a country where it rains all the time. We got an artificial wicket the last season I was there, though.
So you're the Midwest's own Morgan.
There you go, yeah, exactly. In fairness, we played to no decent standard. In fact, when we played to a decent standard and moved up a couple of rungs of the Leinster League, people lost interest because you had to be a bit more serious. It was a lot more fun when cricket was kind of something that happened in between going to the pub.
Okay.
So,
fair play.
But still, I will retain my love for one day cricket.
Funny enough, that's what happened cricket. I mean, if you look at the people that were involved back in the day, they were of all shapes and sizes. And now that it became much more of an athletic endeavour and more of a professional concern, the wider public interest in it on TV has played a huge part in this, but the wider public interest in it has diminished. You don't have 18 stone sloggers as much as you used to. You only have to look at like Freddie Flintoff, who turned himself from like a slightly overweight, boozy all-rounder into svelte paragon of the professional era, and it was all as they went behind a paywall, and it's a bit of a shame in that.
Yeah, this ties in nicely to golf as well. It's all related. Golfers are now effectively, they live in the gym. You look at Rory McIlroy, he is now, and Bryson DeChambeau, these guys are actually the model for golfers. It's no longer the hefty gentleman going around and enjoying his game of golf. It's an entirely different thing. The other thing I wanted to ask you about, Arthur, as well, we kind of touched on it last night with Fiona Hayes, but it's now been reignited today because the Springboks have confirmed they will be playing Munster. The idea that it seems now very likely that Páirc Uí Chaoimh is going to host a rugby game between the Springboks and Munster, which will definitely open the door for the idea of Munster playing other big games there too.
Why did you want to ask me about this?
Because we were kind of talking about it in the office and I get to talk to you about it there, so why not do it on the radio?
You can go on them. I mean, it makes sense. I presume, again, I don't know what the situation with what money needs to be brought in, but it's a great revenue stream if you can kick it up. Like, I appreciate it's not going to happen all the time, but it'd be class, and I just think it would look amazing. I think it'd be a fantastic stadium for kind of a high level rugby match like that, packed out under lights. Absolutely incredible. All for it. Yeah, there'd be no sort of, and I presume the calendar would be pretty forgiving. Like, it'd be November, so it's not anything you need moved. Would be club and move it to Limerick, move it wherever else. Like,
it's midweek as well, so even if there is club championship games on that weekend in the Munster club, it won't affect them in Páirc Uí Chaoimh.
Yeah.
And a bit unlike Ed Sheeran, you don't have to rip up the pitch when a rugby game comes there by comparison, so you're not putting the stadium out of commission for a few weeks. I mean, Richie, it does open some interesting opportunities though, because last year particularly Munster, because of the Thomond Park situation with Ed Sheeran, moved their game to the Aviva Stadium. They brought a lot of fans up to the Aviva, but at the same time, if they'd had a venue within Munster to actually play it, that would have been optimal.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, this, because they've clearly done their maths on this and presumed that with a 40,000 seat stadium or capacity stadium, they can get more revenue in. They'll get it televised as well, which will probably bring in a few more quid for them too. But they're kind of lucky. They're in that. It was a footnote to the Examiner piece that kind of broke the news that they were going to the park potentially. Was of course reigniting the issue that they're the only province in the country who are able to stage essentially international invitationals like this. So Connacht can't do this, Leinster can't do this, Ulster can't do this at the moment. Only Munster, in their proud tradition of beating the All Blacks way back when, can continue on this. So it's a nice little earner for them if they can get it over the line. It shows the disparity between the park and Thomond Park, as new and as modern as Thomond Park is compared to other stadiums in terms of rugby in the country. Still only 24,000 can fit inside it, and yet you don't feel like it's worthy of an upgrade or an extension in terms of attendance, because the attendances that Munster have had the past couple of seasons don't necessarily warrant it. It'll be a nice little one-off, a nice little distraction. And I guess Jack Nienaber said today that it's going to be adequate for them to build their squad depth and to give them give fringe players a good run out ahead of the World Cup next year. So you kind of know what you're getting. It's not going to be a full-strength Springbok side. It's going to be a Munster team who are aiming to take a quote-unquote international scalp. It'll be a decent occasion if it comes off. It's all up to how narky Central Council are about it now.
Yeah, looking forward to that already. Let's be fair though, it is really good rent for the GAA as well, at a time when they need to maximise revenues coming out of Páirc Uí Chaoimh after all the money that they sunk into it. The news round is brought to us by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. Richie, where do you want to start?
Yeah, we'll start with that game. Jack Nienaber, as I said, saying the autumn date with Munster will help build their depth for next year's Rugby World Cup. Munster will host what's called a South Africa Select 15 on November the 10th. The game is 5 days after Ireland hosts the Springboks at the Aviva. The venue for the game is still to be decided, as we say, and it's reported that Páirc Uí Chaoimh has been earmarked, subject to approval from the all-important and almighty Central Council of the GAA.
And Rory McIlroy's been talking about these potential tweaks that are coming in for the PGA Tour season.
Just a coincidence that he was first up ahead of the Tour Championship today to speak to the media minutes after the PGA Tour confirmed a number of tweaks aimed at staving off the Saudi-funded LIV Golf. There will be 12 so-called elevated events with purses of in and around $20 million. A new player impact program will offer $100 million to 20 players who they say resonate the most with fans and media. Top players will commit to 20 PGA Tour events a year, and players will also be guaranteed earnings of $500,000 a year. The changes follow those talks headed by McIlroy and Tiger Woods last week in Delaware, with the former saying they are trying to safeguard the tour's future.
We all have to sit down and be like, okay, what is the best thing for our tour going forward? What can we do to help put forward the best product possible so that in 50 years' time the PGA Tour is still thriving, and we can safeguard the future of the tour. And that was basically what last week was about. It was amazing to have Tiger in the room because of his influence, but all those players in that room bought into the vision that the Tiger and I and others have sort of came up with. And it's not as if we did this as a renegade group. We kept Jay privy to all these sort of discussions so that he could try to make some moves internally to try to get stuff happening pretty quickly, and obviously that has culminated in some of the announcements that have been made today, and then I'm sure there will be some changes going forward as well, but I think today was a great step in the right direction.
This all sounds remarkably subjective, Richie, the idea that potentially media engagement and fan engagement might actually determine some of the money being handed out?
Yeah, to quote the great Alan Partridge, this sounds disconcertingly vague. They'd say they will have metrics involved to measure this kind of thing, to prove to people who might be outside that crucial 20 that they're not getting an extra few quid in their back burner. But yeah,
it's almost like if a clip goes viral, you might get more money.
Exactly. Or if you say something, you're like, I don't know, Graham McDowell should have probably stuck it out with the PGA Tour for another while, done another one of his personality videos, and who knows, maybe he could have been within that crucial top 20 just for sheer notoriety, but off he goes to LIV with his Gladiator and Shawshank Redemption DVDs.
I'm sure he is not going to be short of cold beers or money on the LIV Tour either. Also, it's been highlighted in the text that has been sent to me as well that the RFU don't believe in the notion of Munster having sole licence to host international touring sides. So there is that potential for some of the other provinces maybe to take on some of these teams, particularly the ones that come up to the Northern Hemisphere as well. So maybe it won't be Munster exclusively doing so. But that's the golf at the moment. That's nearly as much golf as you get in Golf Weekly this week that we've ended up talking about.
I've been going for 3 hours.
Yeah. Tributes also being paid to one of the FAI's great administrators today, Richie, as well.
Yeah, former FAI president Dez Casey has died at the age of 91. He became the first Irishman voted onto the UEFA Executive Committee back in 1994 and was elected a vice president in 2000. He stuck with the FAI until 2002. He was also an honorary president of his native Dundalk and played a pivotal role in hiring Jack Charlton as Republic of Ireland manager in 1986, as explained at the time by Charlton himself.
As you know, there was some controversy in your appointment. Are you happy that you have the full backing of the FAI?
I don't want to talk about controversy. The chairman phoned me, or the president, sorry. The president phoned me and said, would you like, the job is yours if you would like it. And I said, I would like it. End of story.
Yeah, may rest in peace as well. Shamrock Rovers. Some interesting wording today, Richie, where they said if we play in the Conference League group stages, which seems after last week's game against Ferencváros that is what is going to happen. But they're still holding out hope in that statement that they might just be playing in the Europa League as opposed to in the Conference League. But the good news for the Hoops is that they'll be able to stay at home for the group stages.
Yeah, they've been granted permission to play their home games in the Conference League group stage at Tallaght Stadium. However, Rovers say they must bear the costs of bringing the stadium up to UEFA's Category 4 status, something they won't have to do when it's a four-sided arena next year. Rovers trail Ferencváros by 4-0 ahead of their Europa League playoff second leg tomorrow night. It is an uphill task, but if they manage to pull that off, I'll be asking them for the Euromillions results as well on Friday.
Oh, there you go. Newcastle, we're going to hear about their next signing from Richie in a moment, Arthur, but in a way it's kind of been a slightly restrained summer window from Newcastle so far, given the riches that were injected into the club at the start of this calendar year. They brought in some players in January, which ensured that Eddie Howe had the players to keep him in the Premier League. And now the chequebook is really opening. It looks like the Swedish striker Isak is going to come in as their record signing. Could be up to €80 million for a guy who scored 6 goals in the Liga last year, but he's a very, very good player. This is Newcastle's statement signing now.
Yeah, and I think he scored at the weekend as well, didn't he, against Barcelona?
He did.
Yeah, it is, yeah. But it was funny watching that match on Sunday against Man City. And it was kind of, because they played so well for such a long duration of it. And then they take Callum Wilson off, and they bring obviously in Chris Wood. It's like, he's all right, but he's not really. That wasn't a now we'll push on and get this win here at home. It's just kind of like, okay, good grief, that did a job last year, but that's not going to do a job this year. So I can completely see it. It makes complete sense. It's a grim foreshadowing of what's to come. But if they kind of what's worse as well for those, I suppose, who don't necessarily want to see that kind of structure and organisation succeed, is that it's kind of been done with a good degree of tact. Like that's not a Robinho signing, just throw it at it and see what happens and he'll win it.
This is a sensible guy in his early 20s who has a good profile, who the big clubs have been looking at, and now you've blown them out of the water with a big bid. Exactly,
and he'd go in there and you will suspect that they've probably done a good degree of homework on him and why it will work, and that's look, I mean, that's elite football, but they're going to, if this is the measure of what they're going to be doing, and if they're like, right, this is our statement, and now every signing won't be that big, but if they're shopping in that market now, kind of everything's a given. Anything could happen at all. You know what I mean? There's nothing. They could go anywhere after that.
Richie, if this happens, it will be a record signing for Newcastle as well.
Yeah, who's set to make Alexander Isak their record signing. The Premier League club have agreed personal terms with the Swedish striker. Talks are ongoing with his club Real Sociedad. Newcastle likely to pay around €70 million for Isak, eclipsing the $47 million paid to Hoffenheim for Joe Linton 3 years ago. Eddie Howe's side are away to Tranmere of League 2 in the second round of the Carabao Cup tonight. Elsewhere, there's a Yorkshire derby at Ellen Road where Leeds play Barnsley. William Hondermark and Luca Connell are on the bench for Barnsley tonight. Brighton go to Forest Green. Evan Ferguson, the Republic of Ireland under-21 striker, gets his first ever start for Brighton in that game as well. Andrew Moran and James Furlong are also on the bench for Brighton, so lots of Irish involvement there. And Daryl Horgan starts for Wickham at home to Bristol City. The third round draw, which will involve the Premier League big guns, will be made after tonight's game. And Rangers are Eindhoven, looking to book a place in the group stage of the Champions League for the first time in 11 years. They're tied at 2 goals apiece with PSV ahead of their playoff second leg, and that one kicks off at 8 p.m.
Yep, looking forward to the text on 53106 and the tweets coming in off the ball saying it'll be Rangers' first time to play in the group stages in Europe. No doubt there'll be at least 1 or 2 coming in of that hue. Sam Bennett as well. How do you get on today, Rich?
Yeah, it was I don't want to say nothing day for him, but he retained the green points jersey after today's 5th stage of the Vuelta a España. Neither he nor his main rivals were involved in today's intermediate sprint, nor the finish itself in Bilbao. The stage was won by Marc Soler of UAE Team Emirates. Rudy Mollard, meanwhile, has taken the overall leader's red jersey from Primož Roglic.
James Scales going to be joining us in a few minutes' time to talk about the appointment for the Dublin Hurlers with Micheál Donoghue coming in on a 3-year term, bringing pretty much his management team en masse from Galway from 2017 to Dublin for next season. But Tomás O'Shea is now officially going in as the Kerry under-20 boss, Arthur, and he has put a lot of All-Ireland winners in there. He takes over from Declan O'Sullivan, but he's got Brian Sheehan as part of the backroom team, Seamus Moynihan as part of the backroom team. And you really get the feeling that when O'Shea decided not to take the Offaly senior job, when this became available, it was going to be very attractive with the group of players coming through. But also it looks like this could be the Kerry management team of the future being blooded here as well. Yeah,
in a perfect world, I suppose that's how it works. But he certainly has the profile and everything else. Like, there's no, if he makes any sort of good go of it, and is, I don't know, you'll probably know better about his reputation, I suppose, after his time in at Offaly and how he seemed to adapt and was welcomed by players. But God almighty, like, he's everything there that if you'd have very little kind of complaints, I suppose, if when Jack O'Connor does go, that it's like, oh, Tomás O'Shea, that's fine. I mean, there's such a catalogue of people who could step in that you kind of would be admirable candidates. So it must be, I suppose, how he sees it. Probably the job he wants ultimately at the end of the day will be the Kerry senior job. So yeah, it kind of makes, I suppose, it makes the most sense to still stay within eyesight and earshot of everyone, that you're kind of there. You won't be disappearing.
I think he served a bit of his apprenticeship by going outside the county last year to prove what he can do, and it's now a case of here's a chance to get involved in the Kerry system and show what you can do with the Kerry players, get an intimate knowledge of the players who are coming through at the same time as well. Can be very interesting to see what's on. Yep, the Offaly players were very, very strongly in favour of him coming in as manager for next year, but his situation changed work-wise, and perhaps this fits around it a little bit better as well. We talked about cricket at the outset, Richie. Let's go back to cricket again.
Yeah, Ireland's women have secured a one-day series victory over the Netherlands. They beat their hosts by 210 runs in Amstelveen this afternoon to take an unassailable 2-0 lead in the series. Leah Paul and Laura Delaney both hit centuries as Ireland set a record target of 338. The Dutch were bowled out for just 127. That margin of victory, 210 runs, a record as well for Ireland. Leah Paul with a record innings as well too. So the record's tumbling in Amstelveen, and a chance for them to secure a series whitewash on Friday.
And just to finish out, because we've got Rebecca Clancy at the Times with us to talk Formula 1 a little bit later on in the programme. Danny Ricciardo is looking for a new team for next season.
Yeah, McLaren have confirmed that Ricciardo will leave them at the end of the current F1 season. The Australian's contract, which was expected to run until 2023, has been terminated early by mutual consent. Both the team and the driver, who won in Monza last year, say they will announce their plans in due course.
Interesting to see what happens. Arthur, Richie, thanks a million for joining us on the News Round.
Nice one, lads.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's Summer Cash Machine.
Now, on Wednesday, we had an incorrect guess. Ger in Kilmallock had written